Hello and welcome back again to our next episode of Off the Shelf Book Talk with Book Lovers. I'm Elizabeth Nelson here once again with Kay Johnson. And as always, we ask the question, Kay, what have you been reading?
So are you a fan of Agatha Christie?
Yes.
Did you know that she is the all-time best-selling author with over 2 billion books sold in over 100 languages? I just found that out because I was curious because the movie Death on the Nile just came out on DVD in end of April. And so I was curious about her books. And I thought, over 2 billion books. I mean, that is one heck of a pile of books. And she wrote, I think, 66 books total.
That's why they call her the Queen of Murder.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you really have to wonder about her because she, unlike some authors that tend to use just one or two types of approaches to killing someone, Christie was just all over. I mean, there was poison, there was guns, there were knives, there was,
everything.
Yeah, I mean, there was just no limit. And then she created such, enduring characters as Miss Jane Marple, Hercule Poirot. I just think she's amazing.
Plus, there's a bit of a mystery about her herself as a person, because she disappeared for like a summer or something, or like a week, and nobody knows where she went or what she did or what happened.
Yeah, there's actually a
People
book about it.
People thought she was kidnapped or she was killed or all kinds of stuff.
You know, her play The Mousetrap ran for 67 years, and it took COVID pandemic to interrupt that schedule.
Oh gosh, it's amazing.
67 years. That's older than us.
Yep.
I mean, I can't even imagine. I wish I was a relative. Those royalties would be very fine.
Yeah. So have you been reading Christie recently?
I occasionally go back and read. My all-time favorite book is the Styles, House of Murder of the House. It's her first book. And it introduces Hercule Poirot. That is a great book. Well, it's a English country mystery.
And countryside murder,
Yeah, but
as we've established, those are Kay's favorites.
It's an interesting book. It's well done. It's just really well done. And some of her books aren't as deep. They're faster. She probably had contracts to fulfill. But this is her first one, and it is really, really good.
Good.
But it's always on the list if you look up Christie and her best books, and then there were none, Murder on the Orient Express, and this one often is listed.
Cool. Yeah.
The Affair at Styles.
Aha, there we go.
I knew I.
You got to find the right adjective or verb or whatever it is.
So if you're looking for a good book to read and you're interested in Agatha Christie, I would highly recommend that.
Cool.
Simply because it was her first book. But it's really well done.
Yeah.
So what have you read?
Well, sticking with our mystery theme, I read a book by Allie Reynolds called Shiver. And this follows a group of friends. So the book takes place 10 years, again, after an event happened with a group of friends. So there's a group of people that were all professional snowboarders or trying to become professional snowboarders, and they're all at this ski lodge resort training, and at event, one of their friends goes missing, and they don't know if she was murdered, if she left, what happens to them. And then 10 years later, they get emails that are supposedly sent from other members of the group inviting them to come up for this weekend at the resort where they all used to stay. And of course they get there, and the people that supposedly sent the emails did not send the emails, and the what is that called? The train they used to go up.
Oh,
those sometimes. Can't think of the name, but whatever.
Ski lift?
Well,
gondola.
Gondola, or like a tram or something that goes up. And of course, it gets up to the lodge. It doesn't work. They can't get in. They're stuck. And then someone starts picking people off one by one, as they always do in these situations. And so
I
it's
believe that's a ripoff of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie.
Probably, yep. So they're all staying there, and so it's them going back and forth, seeing what all happened that winter when they were staying there and how it affected.
Did they find out if the missing girl did?
Of course they find out. And of course it's never just an easy, this is what happened. In this version, it took like 95 people for it to happen.
Yes, I hear you.
There was sometimes they were talking about it. I'm not going to say what all happened, but it's like in the movie Clue, where it's never just like the one person just did it. It was like this person killed that person and this person did that and X, Y, and Z to attach to this. And it was just kind of this whole big thing. And I was like, okay, let's go back through this again. It's sort of like when they talk about everything that happened to like Rasputin with the Romanovs, where they're like, oh, they poisoned him and then they beat him and then they stabbed him and then they
tried
hung
to
him and they drowned him and all this stuff happened to him. And so it's just kind of one of those situations where you were like, really? It took all of this for one of these to happen? But I really enjoyed it. This author is actually from Australia, I believe. And she has a new book coming out called The Bay, which is about a group of surfers, because she was originally a professional surfer down there who's turned into an author. So, and she's kind of fun to follow on. It's kind of fun to follow the different authors on social media, like on Twitter and stuff, because most of them a lot of them, the people that I follow either have a book coming out within the next few months, or they're finishing a book.
Oh, okay.
Which is always exciting, because then it's like, okay, so they finished it, so now how long until I get to read it?
Yes.
Which is always exciting. But it was good. So again, it's called Shiver, and I think it actually has a different title overseas, or there was some change in the name of it, as sometimes happens when they jump the pond. So, but I liked that one. And then I also read by Lucy Foley, The Paris Apartment, which is her new one. And this is a girl goes to Paris to stay with her brother after her life kind of falls apart a little bit, and gets to the apartment building and her brother's missing.
Of course, the brother's
missing, and nobody seems to know what happened to him. And not only is he gone, but so is his laptop and whatever he was working on. And it's this sort of strange group of people that live in this apartment. So it's her figuring out what happened to him and how all of the people in the apartment might be connected to it. So it was interesting. I really like Lucy Foley's writing. She did The Hunting Party and also The Guest List, which have both been on, I think, if not the bestseller list. I think one of them was a Reese Witherspoon read. I think The Guest List was. And that one's, The Guest List is about a wedding on an island. And of course, there's a terrible storm and everybody's stuck, as they tend to be. And then The Hunting Party is again up your alley, a bunch of people stuck in a snowstorm at a ski resort in the mountains. So, but I really enjoyed it.
It's not English though.
It's not. It might be in Europe, but I'd have to go back and double check. But yeah, so those are, I really like her writing. So she tells a good story. Again, they're usually standalones. They're usually fast paced with a few different twists and
those are all good things.
Yes, they are. What else have you been reading?
If you have an interest in politics,
fake politics, yes. Real politics, no.
Well, the real politics, we're in very divisive times with very clear liberal and conservative positions, and many people think this is a unique situation. Well, I highly recommend that you tackle the book Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. And she's a historian. And this book takes place during Lincoln's, from when he was elected president to his assassination. And if you know anything about Lincoln, he believed in keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And so he actually brought in several people who ran against him and who had differing points of view into his cabinet. And so he drew from all these different positions in order to make policy. And so the book is really good, because I did not realize until I read it that the night that Lincoln was assassinated, there was actually a plot to remove all of the leading. You read the book, right?
Not that one, but I've read Killing Lincoln by Bill O'Reilly.
Okay.
Which
Yes.
That was really good too. But see, the thing I like about the Bill O'Reilly book is that reads like fiction.
Yes.
So
it's
for
fast.
somebody who doesn't want like the super heavy, here's X, Y, and Z political that happened, Bill O'Reilly with the Lincoln, Kennedy, Patton, SS, all of those books that he's done, those are, I only got partway through Kennedy and I had to stop because you can only take so many of the Kennedys before you just got to put the Kennedys away for a while, take a break, which I needed to do. So, I mean, it's with the Kennedys, it's one of those things where like when you hear about them in school, is a complete different Kennedys than you hear about once you get out of school and start moving on with things. So,
well, and you know, at the Met Gala,
yes,
Kim Kardashian wore Marilyn Monroe's new dress that she wore when
Happy Birthday, Mr. President.
Yes.
There's apparently some issue because there's some conservator of Marilyn's estate that they apparently aren't too happy that she got to wear the dress to the Met Gala.
Well, you know, I saw the headline on that and I didn't get a chance to read it.
I didn't get a chance to read it either. But
because she apparently just like wore it for a short time and then had a replica that she slipped on.
Something like that.
I don't know how these people can like switch clothes so fast when they're in the.
I know. I'm fine in my sweatpants with my book and my dog, and I'll call it good.
Yeah, I hear ya.
Yeah, but Team of Rivals does a good job.
Yep.
With
So
it.
I would say if you have an interest in politics and you'd like to know more about a period of history that's actually somewhat influencing today, I would encourage you to read it because it's really a well done book.
Nice.
And then I'd like to add another book that I would recommend with it is. Now, of course, I won't find it since I'm looking for it, but it's by.
You gotta clean out your Kindle. Sometime,
yeah, I guess with 2,000 books on it, I suppose I should. But the book is Cry of Freedom by James McPherson, and he is a professor. I want to say at Harvard, but that might not be right. But one of the private schools in the East, and the book is really an excellent overview of the Civil War because it tells you why it happened, what happened, and I highly recommend it. He earned a Pulitzer Prize for the book.
Nice.
But it's really a great book, and I often recommend it to people who are interested in learning more about the Civil War because it gives you such a fine overview.
Okay.
And so James McPherson, and he's written several books about the Civil War, but the Pulitzer Prize winning one is the one you want to read.
Okay. Nice.
So what else are you reading? Something lighter, I hope.
Something lighter. Well, let's see here. What have I read
mean,
that's
then,
lighter?
Team of Rivals.
Team of Rivals. Yeah, well, I didn't read anything political, so we're good. I like a lot of Riley Sager's books. He tends to write true crime related or crime related books. But he had a new book that came out called Survive the Night. And the premise of this book made me really excited for it. It's a girl accepts, she's leaving college to go back home, and so she goes to the rideshare board and accepts a ride from a stranger during a time where there is a serial killer loose on campus, of course.
Oh, gosh.
And during the ride begins to think that this guy offering her the ride may not be who she thinks he is. So, again, really, really great premise. And I got about maybe a third of the way through the book, and it was not good. And as it got further and further into the book, it did not get better. It simply got worse to the point where things that were happening just could not happen in real life. And there was no amount of suspension of disbelief that was going to get me through this book. And I had a friend that was reading it at the same time and had finished it. And she texted me and she said, I finished the book. And I said, well, what did you think? And she's like, what did you think?
That's always a bad beginning.
And it was one of those things where you could just tell like how she sent me the message. She didn't want to be like, it was bad and have me be like, oh, I loved it. But we both agreed like, It was not good. And so I'm sorry. If you read Survive the Night by Riley Sager and you loved it, I apologize that I don't like it. But he's had some that are really good. He's got another one coming out, I believe this summer, called The House Across the Lake, which sounds interesting. But this book just kind of missed them. I mean, it sounds like it'd be really good, like two people stuck in a car, driving home in the middle of the night. You don't know each other. You know, it sounds like it could be something really good or something you'd see in like
When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, you know, or like it'd be like some old Hollywood movie,
Yep.
people in a car. Kind of reminds me of like a Strangers on the Train type thing where people sit down and talk and don't know each other. Except that one, they decide to murder different people for each other, which is a terrible thing to do. But, so I felt bad about that. And it was one of those things too where like I bought the book and I was like, I should have just got it from the library. But I was on vacation and needed another book to read. So I bought it and then wish I had it, unfortunately. But maybe you'll read it and you'll think different. So
Let us know.
yeah. What else have you read, Miss Kay?
I reread a book called The Glade, Manor Murder.
Okay.
And I reread it because it was an English weekend country house murder.
We should have a shirt made. I love weekend country
I
house
should.
murders.
The author was Elizabeth LaMarche, and she writes a really fine mystery.
Good.
And I want to say she wrote maybe 16, and then she died. And that was the end of that.
Well, yeah, that would be the end of it.
Yeah, yeah, she's not writing beyond the Keratin. And but her books are really, really, really great. And she uses the same detective team, and they're just really good books with good characters, and they're not just knocked off. You know,
Yeah.
there's some thought that goes into them, and so on. So if you're looking for a good mystery, I highly recommend her books. She, I think, died in the 60s maybe, or 70s. So her books predate that.
Okay.
But she was a teacher.
Okay.
And then went on to become an author after she
Nice.
retired. And so, but she's really good. So if you're looking
Good.
for somebody, I would recommend that.
Well, I went back and I was, I've talked about them previously. Sarah J. Maas is one of my favorite authors, and I've read, she's got 3 series out that one of them is finished, and then the other 2 she's kind of still working on. But Throne of Glass is the series she's finished, and there was a series of prequels she wrote that came out, I think, either while the books were going on or afterwards, and they get you a little more in depth with some of the other characters in the book, and with their kind of backstories about how she got to know some of these different mercenaries and other people, the main character, and they were really good to read. The only problem I had with them is that there were some people in these prequels that were really great characters, but they were dead before the books began. So it was one of those where like there were 4 of these prequels, and you knew the further into the prequels you get that at some point these characters were going to start getting knocked off. And so it was one of those things where it was like, you look at it and you're like, why did you do this to me? You're telling me more about these people, and then you're going to kill them before I get a whole book with them. But so that was kind of sad, but it did explain more in depth about some of the thoughts behind the character, which was interesting. So those I like. I read all of those, and so there have been some where I think it might be time to go back and reread some of those. But again, Sarah J. Maas, I have to be in a certain mindset because her books tend to destroy you. Emotionally, mentally. And she had a new one that came out, was it like February or March, called House of Sky and Breath, which is the second book in her Crescent City series. And it was a good book, well written. The very last ending was not something that I saw coming, how the final page ended. And it was one of those things where I was like, a friend of mine has read a different series of hers and not this one. And I said, have you read Crescent City? And she said, no. And I said, I need you to buy them, read them, and then you have to call me when you're done because I have no one to talk to about what I just read. And I need to. And so you got to help me out. And she was like, I have to go to the bookstore and buy 2 books. Darn. She was like, add to cart. We're good. But her books, I always know, like, I have to be like ready to like, I can love the characters, but some of them I can't love too much because she'll just kind of emotionally destroy you.
Got you.
And it's one of those things where you do with her books, I always tend to get some kind of a book hangover. Her original ones I read were her A Court of Thorn and Roses series, and it was right after Alex was born, and I was up at night feeding him, and so I was reading the books, and I was like, oh, I could start this because all 3 books are out. All 3 books were not out, just the first 2, and so then I had to wait for the 3rd one, and that's always the worst. I have several books like that I'm just waiting for the next book to come out from the authors, so I stalk them on Twitter waiting for them to announce that it's coming out. I'm like, come on. Like they're writing and it's like, keep writing, get it out there. I mean, it was the same with the new Maggie Holt book. She just sent that final proof to her editor for Maggie Holt. I think this is the 11th book. Okay. Because I think it's the 10th anniversary of the first ones.
Okay.
Because she just had the 10th anniversary of Mr. Churchill's secretary.
Okay.
So that one came out. But the newest one that's supposed to come out is Tinker, Tailor, Mother, Daughter, Soldier, Spy, or something like that. So it's going to have more to do with Maggie and her mother, Miss Clara Hess, who's a nasty piece of work. But that's the one fun thing about a lot. Some of them, the authors you follow on social media, they're very interesting to follow. Like every once in a while, Ruth Ware, who's written like Death of Miss Westaway, In the Dark, Dark Wood. The other day, she sent out like, does anybody know if the trains from this city to this city, if you can unlock them with a switch or are they all mechanical now? Like she was like asking people, how do I get to Train Spotting Twitter? I need to know if the train's here, if this specific train is this way or not. And it's just funny to see them trying to figure that out.
I'll tell you, as a writer, you are doing things like that all the time, checking on stuff to see. Well, I was trying to find out how long the program was at Brown Institute in 1973. And I could not. Yeah,
but it's just interesting what they, when they share stuff like that. She's just, I need to know if it's this one train on this one line. It's like the 5 o'clock from this time to this time. The train does it have like motorized doors, or does it still have this clip where you can force it open?
Because she's going to throw somebody out or bring someone in.
I know, it's like, gee, I wonder what you're writing about or where your next book is set. Yes. But it's just kind of fun to see that. And it's fun to see when they kind of interact, like if they're building each other up and how they interact with their following of fans.
Well, writing is such a solitary job. That I can see where social media would fill a role because you can interact without interacting.
Well, and it's kind of fun too. It's kind of fun, like if you're on Twitter, like every once in a while, if I post that I read a book and I'll tag the author, sometimes they like your tweet or they say back like, "Thanks for reading it. I'm glad you liked it," and you're just like, "They said hi," and you're like, they're probably saying hi to everybody, but yourself, you're like, they know I existed for a minute in time, and then I read their book. And somebody had mentioned at one point that why wouldn't you post that you like an author's work? Because they, if they're home writing, they have no way to know if people buying their book actually like their book.
That's true.
So they're like the most they can do is ignore you.
Yeah. Well, and some do because they're a little stranger than others,
or they're not actually managing their own
social
media. But
that's
interesting.
It's an interesting thing because I've interviewed a lot of authors, and almost all of them really like to make personal appearances because it brings them in contact with their readers, and they can get direct feedback because, when you, like you said, they write a book, they send it off, and it comes out a year later. So, but when that book comes out, that author is way ahead in a new book.
They're already somewhere else,
and stuff. So it's a great thing when they can connect and, oh wow, you really like, or that you pick up something that's like.
Well, and it has to be interesting too to see, like with Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, how far people can take them. Where there are people that cosplay or dress up in costumes, and then they make like there's a guy that's hosting a Dungeons and Dragons campaign where it's all about if the members from the Lord of the Rings had tried to take the eagles to drop the ring in and failed. And so that's his whole premise of this podcast he's doing is it's an alternate way of the people getting to the ring to Mount Doom in Lord of the Rings, which is interesting. And so it's been fun to see how people can expand on that, or people have made alternate storylines for Harry Potter and all that. So it's really been fun to see what people do. And it's like, there are people that are just as obsessed with books as I am. It's fantastic. We're all a little weird. I think that's what they say in, is that Carol Lewis, we're all mad here.
Yes.
We're all a little mad here, which is true. And that's going to do it for us this time. So we'll see you next time. Reach out to us on Facebook or our email at offtheshelfbooktalk@gmail.com, and we will see you next time.